and welcome. I'm Julia Sotas, and I have to say, oh, see, my dad's not going to be able to see me. I got to make this thing. And just want to start off by saying I am so deeply, incredibly grateful to be part of such a beautiful community. Like, I could not be more proud to be from the Westman area. I've traveled the world for the last 4 years studying access consciousness, and I've been everywhere. And I come home and I can just like, there's no community that supports events like we do here. So yeah. Truly, this expo wouldn't be possible in so many places because people, have things to do and they're busy, and it's just not something that people get excited about. And here, everyone comes, they take the day off. I had one lady say, I'm getting a babysitter and I'm giving the dog to my mom and I'm going to drive an hour and a half to come see the show. And so thank you so much. And I'm so proud to be here, and I'm so grateful for each one of you. Sue, can I change to the other mic? This one's reversed. Pardon? Okay, I'm just going to change mics. Go. So check. Can you make sure? Check.
Showed me how to turn this on. So this is a blind leading the blind.
Here. On. Can you guys hear me?
Just give it a minute. Hold over here.
Okay. Awesome.
There you go.
Okay. That thing, yeah. This is better. No?
Is it okay there? No, it's not good at all.
It's not good. I just want to talk to you guys.
Just go talk.
Okay, I'll turn this on. Okay.
Sorry, guys.
I got overexcited. So today, the topic of my speech today is happiness, and this has kind of been an interesting journey for me. I mean, the topic of happiness, I used to have depression, and most people wouldn't know it because I'm high and I'm always going and I'm happy all the time. But I was somebody who actually would crawl to the floor at 3 o'clock in the morning on the middle of the bathroom floor crying because I felt like the entire world was crushing on my shoulders. And so if somebody would have told me at that time, my speech is titled "Happiness is Just a Choice." So if somebody would have told me at that time that happiness is just a choice, I'd tell them to fuck off. But I've traveled the world the last 4 years and have learned a special set of tools called access consciousness, and they've really, really changed the way that I look at the world. Because happiness is actually just a choice. It's not created by our external environments or the people that we were raised with. It's created by what we actually choose in the day-to-day, who we choose to surround ourselves with now, and the kind of life that we actually choose to lead now. And I mean, the number one thing that we're taught is to judge ourselves. And we think, a lot of the time I would think to myself, oh, I'm so judgmental of other people. How could I say that to them? But actually, at the end of the day, I was never judgmental of other people. I was judgmental of myself. So I've used these tools to stop judging myself. And the first tool that I actually use is to live as the question. Because what we're taught in life is that if we don't get the right answer, we're wrong. And we're always trying to find the right man or woman, or the right house, or the right job, or the right life that's going to give us the perfect scenario, or our utopian fantasy. And we spend our whole lives chasing that. but we're not actually open to asking for greater than what we've been taught we can have. In Access, we have this thing called the clear statement, and I'll explain that later on in the speech. But one of the questions that I love the most is, how does it get better than this? And you can ask the question, how does it get better than this, when something good happens or when something bad happens? Because we sort of have this thing, you know, people always say, well, it can't get any better than that. And it actually can. It can always get better. And when you actually keep choosing and creating and striving for what else is possible and what else is out there, there's always something better. There's always a greater reality and a greater world for you. And I don't mean that in the, oh, she's so cute out there in her little pink dress, Pollyanna sense. I actually mean that there's a world inside of you that when you continuously ask questions and choose based on the energy of what matches the answer to that question, you'll actually start to feel the energies of a new world and a new universe. So everybody got in their little package a pen and a notepad, and so I'm gonna give you guys some different questions to live by and to play with, so you can write down the questions. So you can grab your notepad.
Oops.
So the first question, and I said it before, is how does it get better than this? This is basically going to be the question class. How does it get better than this? So I have a really cool story about this. There was a lady who was in an access class, an access consciousness class that I was in, and she learned this question in the class, and she left the class, and she kept thinking, okay, this new question, how does it get better than this? So she walked out of the conference room. It was in New York City. And she walked out of the conference room, and she saw a dime on the floor. And she picked it up, and she was like, what was that question that I learned? And she said, okay, how does it get better than this? So she asked it. And then she left the hotel and walked down the street, and she found a $10 bill. And she said, how does it get better than this? And she kept walking, with that, because she found that money, she took a cab instead of taking the subway, which she normally would have taken. But she used her $10 to take a cab, and then when she got outside of her apartment, she found a diamond tennis bracelet in the gutter. And she said, wow, it doesn't get any better than that. And that was the last thing she found. So it's like when you communicate with the universe will communicate back. If you ask, you will receive. That's one of the truths of the world and of the universe and the way things work. So what are you not asking for right now in your life that you've been too afraid to ask for because you don't think it can possibly show up? It's sort of like the concept of daring to dream, but it's actually a lot more practical than that. So the first question is, how does it get better than that? Or how does it get better than this, whichever. And the next question is, what do I truly desire? Because most of us are just living by other people's expectations of us, or who we think we have to be polite, to be a good person, to fit in, to not be too much. I mean, if you were really, truly happy all the time, you probably wouldn't even have any friends, because what would you complain about? That's all I did before with my friends, was complain, you know? So it's like, and when your life is phenomenal and you actually have nothing bad to say, it's like you'll actually learn who in your life is actually there to have your back and who actually, people will fall away. So it's like, so what do I desire is a question that I live with every single day. I told this story in my last speech, but it's just such a great story. My sister Carly moved to New York City. We're farm girls from Bertle, and I left to go to university, and she begged my dad. She begged him and said, "Can we get the Home and Garden channel?" So he's like, "Fine." And she started watching this show called $1 Million Listing New York. And she was like, what an incredible show. I would love to just go stuff envelopes for this real estate company. And so she's like, what if I could actually get an internship? See, she asked a question. And so she Googled them and she called up the office and she said, she was 17 years old. She said, do you guys take interns? And they were like, not really, but we're moving offices. And we actually do need some extra help. So if you're willing to work for free, you can come. And she was like, what? So my parents said, you can go as long as you find a good place to stay and, support yourself financially. So she had some savings and she found a 67-year-old New York fashion model to live with who was in the art scene. And so she went down there. And she was scared shitless. She actually wrote a book about it. The book's for sale in the Grand Salon. There's a little plug. But so she goes to New York and she's scared shitless. And she got to the office and there was four about 28-year-old girls who looked down at this little 17-year-old blonde from Fertile, Manitoba, and they're like, what is she doing here? And she just worked really hard every day and kept creating and showing them what she could do and how she was valuable to the company. And by the time, every day she would ask, how does it get better than this? And she would call every day with a crazy adventure. She would say, I met Justin Bieber today and he was really, really nice to me. Or the guys took me out for lunch, or they let me come with them to sell this $5 million apartment. So it's like, when you ask the question and you're willing to make the choices based on the energy of what you would like your life to be, the whole universe will rearrange itself and rework itself to support you. So that's a cool example of how does it get better than this. So another question is, what do I truly desire? And it's like we all have a world inside of us. And in the daily life, we don't often talk about that world or let that world out. Because we live in human reality, and we do the day-to-day thing, and we have bills, and we have families, and things just, that part of us, that world, gets forgotten. So when you ask, what do I truly desire? You're actually tapping into that energy, and you're tapping into that world, and who you actually are. I can see the looks on some of your faces, a few people's eyes are wide, like, just call me, I do have one of those worlds inside of me. But when I ask that question probably 10 times a day, what do I truly desire? And all of these incredible experiences and possibilities show up in my life, just by magic out of nowhere. I just moved to Vancouver, and there was this incredible ocean view apartment that I really, really wanted to get, but it was a little bit out of my budget at $3,000 a month. It was but it's this beautiful ocean view apartment. And so I got the energy that living in the harbor in Vancouver was actually what I truly desired. So I just kept asking, what would it take for this to show up? There's another question. What would it take for blank to show up? So I kept asking that. So what would it take for me to get this place in Vancouver? And I put my name on a waiting list in June, and I never thought anything of it again. I thought, there's no way. I'm probably the youngest applicant for this apartment, whatever. But I just kept asking, what would it take? And I got a call from the tenancy agency 10 days before September 1st. And they said, we have your name, you're at the top of the waiting list. There's about 8 other people who want this apartment, but we're willing to give it to you if you pass the application. And I actually did. So it's like if I would have gone into logic and tried to figure out how that was gonna work, or judge myself and said, oh, that can't happen. I don't have what it takes to get that apartment. It actually would never have been possible. But instead of going to a conclusion, I went to a question. So it's kind of like a retraining of your brain and yourself and the way that your mind works. It's taken me quite a while to retrain myself, but instead of coming to a conclusion and saying, this is the way it is, or I'm not good at. The worst is when you judge yourself. That just kills everything. But if you come to a conclusion about anything, you can only have your conclusion or something less than it. You actually aren't leaving room for the universe to contribute more to you. But if you ask, how does it get better than this? Or what's it going to take? What would have to rearrange in the universe for this to show up? If you ask, what's it going to take? The whole world will contribute to you and begin to bring you what you're asking for. So does that sort of make sense how that works? Yes? Okay, yeah. Okay, so what were our questions? So how does it get better than this? What do I truly desire? What would it take for blank to show up? And you can put anything in your blank. What would it take to have a greater relationship with my family? What would it take to have X amount of dollars show up? What would it take to travel to wherever I want to go? And like the possibilities are infinite, but it's like, would you be willing to know that God or the universe or whatever power is out there has your back? The whole world wants to contribute to you, but are you willing to receive it? It's like there's a softness and a kindness that's surrounding us all the time. And we're going, la, 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 I can't hear you. I have to pay my bills, I have to do this, I have to do this. But it's like, if you actually let your barriers down and allow that softness in, your entire life will change. And it's sort of like being out in nature and feeling the softness and the kindness and the sweetness of the trees. Every single tree has its own point of view. Everything is alive and has its own point of view. We just aren't listening or asking. And when you ask, what do I truly desire? And you actually are willing to receive that, the whole world will contribute to you. So, okay, so what do I truly desire? Okay, another one I love is, what else is possible? That's a great question. Because there's infinite possibilities for how things can show up, and infinite possibilities of what we can choose. But usually we're going to a conclusion, or we're really trained and brought up in an either-or universe. It's like, I can have chocolate or I can have vanilla, but you can't have chocolate and vanilla and pistachio and bubblegum and mint and all of the different things. It's like, in this world, there's a sense of lack and the sense that you can only have one or the other. It's like a multiple choice test. You can have A or B, or maybe A, B, C, or D, all of the above. But when you ask what else is possible, you're actually allowing yourself to be contributed to and have infinite possibilities show up. We truly live in a world of infinite possibilities. You probably wouldn't be sitting in this chair if you didn't know that was possible. There's always more and there's always greater. But we've had it beaten out of us that much is possible. It's like there's always excuses to come to, like, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'll do it once I lose all this weight, I'll do it once I have enough money. It's like, what question can you ask today that will start to allow you to be contributed to? What question can you ask today that will start to get the whole universe moving to your advantage? So instead of going either or, you can ask, what else is possible? And it's like, you don't even have to answer these questions. It's just by being the energy of somebody who's curious and wondering. It's like, what else is possible? Or, I wonder how it does get better than this. It's just that soft, curious energy. It's that curiosity of like a kid. It's like everybody's willing to contribute to a kid, but it's because they don't judge themselves, they don't have points of view, and they're always willing to ask questions. And of course they're going to receive, they just expect to receive. But it's like, we decide that we have to become an adult in this world, and to be taken seriously, we have to take care of ourselves and not receive from anyone. So would you be willing to receive like a little kid? Would you be willing to be gifted to and taken care of and supported in that way? So, what else is possible? And another one I really like is, how can I use this to my advantage? Because sometimes when something really, really bad happens, we assume that there is no other way, or that there is no positive in it. It's sort of like finding the silver lining, but I like it to use it in the form of a question, because then it allows the universe to contribute the possibilities of the rightness in what's going on. So you can ask, how can I use this to my advantage? Or what's right about this that I'm not getting? It's like, what is a silver lining, and what is possible from your choice or from whatever has happened that you actually didn't see? So, those are some other really good ones. And it's like, if you can rephrase your mind, or like rework the way that you think and the way that you be in the world, you actually start to, it's like when you have a lot of judgments about yourself, and you have a lot of hard, fixed points of view about this is right, and this is wrong, and this is good, and this is bad, it's a more solid and dense world. Like, this is just the way that it is, that sort of energy. And it's like, when you start to de-solidify all of that by asking questions, you're like, I wonder what my point of view actually is. Is this my point of view, or am I living from my mother's point of view? Or is this my point of view, or am I living from my dad's point of view? It's like, what's your point of view? What's the world that you know is possible? So many of the things that we consider a problem, it's like, are they really problems? Or have we bought that they're problems because they're problems for other people? It's like my friend Robin, not Robin Chant from the show, but I have a friend Robin who lives in Winnipeg, and she got a flat tire, and she got out of the car, and she was fine, and then she was like, wait a minute, I think I'm supposed to be pissed. A flat tire is supposed to make you mad. So she started getting really, really mad and angry and upset, and she was like, wait a minute, like, I'm supposed to act that way in this situation, and every other person I know would act that way in this situation, but is it really that much of a problem? And she actually asked a question. She said, what's right about this I'm not getting? And she started dating the guy who came to help her with the flat tire. So it's like, if you actually, but if she would have come to a conclusion, somebody else would have shown up. You know what I mean? If she would have said, this is horrible, this is bad, this is a problem, it wouldn't have been him who would have come. It would have been somebody else. So it's like, what questions can you ask that will create a greater possibility in your life? And what world do you have inside of you that you've kept closed and you've kept secret? It's like, if we had a whole world of people who let that world out and were being that world, and choosing from that space rather than choosing from their responsibilities or what's right or wrong or what's logical, it's like, what would the world be like? If everybody actually sang their song and were totally them. Another great question that matches that is, who am I today, and what grand and glorious adventures will I have today? Because who you are is probably not who you act like all the time. Sometimes. I mean, you have those friends and you're with them and you are so excited and thriving and you have these amazing conversations. That's when you're actually being you. But anything else that doesn't actually match who you are, it's frustrating. It creates a bend in your world. And when you actually bring out your being and the strength of your being and start to build that and bring in people into your life who match that, it's like you'll build and you'll build and you'll build. And I call it like building a different reality. Like, what's your reality? This is human reality. This is the reality that we were all born into and we've all been entrained to. And it's like, we have to live in this reality. And I love this reality. But it's like, what is the reality beyond that? What's your reality? And would you be willing not to let this reality squash your reality? But it really does all begin with a question. And another awesome tool with access consciousness, Robin was talking about it before. If some of you were in Robin's speech just now, she said that access consciousness has made her biggest dreams come true in the last 12 months, opening a yoga studio and doing expos and one other. And it's really a part of access consciousness is the bars. And the bars are a body process. It's a hands-on body process. It's 32 points on your head. And they're all about teaching you to receive. It's about, Robin in her speech said it's about getting rid of stress in the body. That's sort of the first thing that you'd say about it, the stock answer. It does get rid of stress in the body, big time. But what it also does is it starts opening you up and opening up your energy and opening up that reality within you so that you can start to receive. So it's 32 points on the head, and it's an energetic process. It's a light touch on the head. And when you touch the different points, they correspond to different areas of life. So it's like there's a money bar, joy, sadness, sexuality, aging, all these different areas of life. And it's sort of like deleting file on your computer bank so that there's not that mind chatter and that self-judgment. The bars are about dissolving self-judgment and just opening you up to receiving from the world. And we actually have bars running, I think we have them running all day. We're giving away free 20-minute sessions at the Access Consciousness booth. So if you want to go give it a shot and actually see what shows up and how you feel after, it's a really, really fun thing to try. I get mine run 3 times a week, and I never have a problem anymore. So, yeah, so I want to go over the questions again, just to reiterate. So it's, how does it get better than this? What are they, Celia? How does it get better than this? What do I truly desire? What would it take for this to show up? What else is possible? And how can I use this to my advantage? And what's right about this that I'm not getting? So it's like, would you be willing to be vulnerable enough to start allowing that part of you to come out and play in the world? Because it's like, for most of us, it's like, it's okay if somebody shoots down the facade of who you are, or the polite, member of the community, or, just sort of like the person that the face you put on in your everyday life. It's not as much of a problem if somebody doesn't like that. But if you actually are being you and being that softness and that world inside of you, if somebody was to stomp on that, it would actually hurt a lot more probably. But it's like, would you be willing to have the strength and the gumption to start being who you actually are and to start asking, what do I truly desire? And building that and creating that. And it's like, would you be willing to allow magic to come into your life? It's like some of the things that I ask for, they show up in front of me and it's like magic. And I can't even believe that that's even possible. But it's like, we are magic. We have magic in us. We wouldn't know about it or believe that it was possible if we weren't actually already it. So another question is, what magic am I that I haven't been willing to know? So, and it's maybe not necessarily like the witches on brooms. I wish it was the witches on brooms. That would be funner. But it's more about like the kindness and the potency and the power of who you truly are is magic. And when you align with the universe and start asking for that, it will show up as if by magic. And there's lots of tools. I mean, it wasn't like a one-day thing. I wish I could give you guys a 1-hour speech and then poof, you go out and your whole life has changed. But it's actually like a reworking of the way that you be in the world. It's a reworking of, I'm not good enough, or this isn't working, or I don't have enough, to going, okay, that's a conclusion, and then going, okay, no, that's the conclusion for then, but what else is possible? And how does it get better than this? And asking and just opening yourself up to everything that's possible for you. It's like, what is possible that you've never even considered was possible? And you can't think your way through these things. I mean, if our mind could solve all of our problems, wouldn't we have solved all of our problems by now with how much we think? But if instead of trying to solve problems, you ask questions and you don't try to answer them, you don't have to think of the answer. It's just like, if I was to ask Tammy, beautiful Tammy in the picture, if I was to ask her a question and I would say, you know, what would it take for this to show up? And Tammy was talking over me and going, you know, you're not good enough, Julia, you suck, you know, you don't have what it takes, you don't have enough money, you don't have enough confidence. It's like, would I be able to contribute to her? No. But that's what we're doing. We're judging ourselves, we're saying we don't have enough, we're coming to conclusions, so the universe can't contribute to us. We're talking over the universe. So it's like, ask a question, have the curiosity, and just keep quiet. I had this book of questions, and when I first started doing Access Consciousness, I didn't know what it was about, or who these people were, or what they did. I just knew that they asked lots and lots of questions. So every day I would write in my book 10 questions. And it was like, what would it take for this to show up? And what would it take for me to travel 1 week out of every month? And what would it take for me to have a certain income? And what would it take for this and this and this? And right down to like having new friends, there was a specific love interest that I had, all of these different things that I would ask every day. And I found the book 2 years after I wrote it. And I just started weeping because I had absolutely every single thing in that book. I had the relationship, I had like the income, everything that I had asked for was actually my life. But that's because I wrote it down. I didn't, and you don't have to write the questions down, you can just ask them as well. But I didn't sit there and judge myself, or I didn't go over the book and go, is that really going to show up? Is that really going to work? I just wrote it down, and I filled the entire notebook over a span of about 2 months. And I put the notebook away, and I found it 2 years later, and that's the life that I was living 2 years ago, and now it's even greater than that. So that's another great tool that you guys can go home with. It's sort of like a gratitude journal, but it certainly creates a hell of a lot more. To just go home and to write every day 10 questions of what would it take for blank to show up, and what would it take for this to show up. And don't think about it, don't judge yourself, don't look at, well, how is this going to show up? Because as soon as you go into the how, you've ruined it. You've talked over the universe can't contribute to you now. But if you ask the question and you just leave it, there is nothing, like there is no way it can't show up. There is no way it can't show up. But just don't put time into the equation, because if you put time into the equation, then it'll stop it. Because the universe doesn't know anything about time. The universe is just going to rearrange itself as quickly and as easily as it can to create what you're asking for. So I love that exercise. I opened the book and I couldn't believe that. The only thing I didn't have in that book was $1 billion, so I'm still working on that. So, but everything else that showed up, it's amazing. But it is really true. Ask and you shall receive. It's the power of prayer. That's the principle behind the power of prayer. If you ask for something, it will show up. So what are you not asking for that if you had the courage to just ask and not go, that's stupid, why would I even ask that? Eventually it will show up. And it might not be tomorrow. It might be tomorrow. I've seen crazier things happen. Or it might be in 4 or 5 years. But it's like you can plant the seed for your future now by asking the questions right now, too. There's questions that I've asked, and I can feel something will open up and pop in my life, and I'll remember back, oh my God, I asked that specific question 3 years ago. So that's another question. If you have room on your list, it's like, what seeds can I plant today? What seeds for the future can I plant today? So it's like what's possible that you've never considered? And would you be willing to have the vulnerability and the honesty with yourself to just ask and just allow yourself to receive? All right, that's pretty much my speech. Thank you guys all for coming. And again, thank you for being so supportive and showing up to the Expo. I'm so proud to be part of such a beautiful community. I'm so grateful, and thank you all so much. Thank you.